SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.
Free from slavery, come follow them your teachings of Marcus Garvey. Make we study Garvey.
Come make we study Garvey.
Know your history.
Now what Congo say for study Garvey. And we have Brother Mandingo up on the line, because him also encourage you and endorse the vibrations on the need for study Garvey. I want to say honorable greetings, welcome to the program every time, www.sfdcradio.com. This is the Nubian beat with yours truly, Sir Kush. This is we have live on the line, yes, one of Fuwe own from Fuwe community, the African community, Brother Mandingo. How you doing, my brethren?
First of all, I give thanks and praises to the Almighty Creator, Ra Olodumare, this Monday, the 6th of October, 2014. Greetings, Brother Kush, and all listeners of the radio station.
Give thanks again. And again, I originally will give thanks to the Almighty Universe and ancestors, especially when we have accessibility to the elders, because sometimes we don't know what tomorrow going to bring. So we give thanks for the rising of another day and for this moment in time, which is another historical moment in the history of broadcasting. Right here, so sfdcradio.com, the Nubian beat. Yes, yours truly. Yes, as we kick off and as we continue, because the struggle continues and the journey continues.
Definitely, sfdcradio.com. And we are in the month of October, which in Britain is designated as African History Month. Not Black History Month, because black is merely a color. African History Month. But as I have said on previous occasions, every month is African History Month. Nevertheless, in October, when they use October and refer to it as African History Month, it's about mobilizing, designating, to remind us that we must practice our African history, learn our African history every day. You know, there are certain times in the year when different things are done. But even though it is designated from in the 1980s as October being African History Month, it does not mean that October is the only month for African history. Every month is African history. Every day is African history. Every night is African history. And what has been happening is that we have had situations in the past and at present whereby we have bandwagonists coming on the African History Month to make money or to get popularity or both using African History Month. These are the culture vultures.
No for them out, my
the bandwagonists.
Are true. But it's the
because all of a sudden you have, over the years, a lot of people who were not into anything about our African culture or African history.
Talk on it.
Coming as so-called experts, applying and getting grants, getting monies, because they are pimping off our people, hustling off our people. And I always make it my duty to try to go to as many of these functions to be able to expose and to correct those who are giving wrong information to our people. For example, you have some people saying that they do not teach African history. They only teach history. Yet, they come and are paid to speak at African History Month events. What a contradiction.
Yes.
You do not teach. You do not deal with African history. You only deal with history. So what are you doing as a speaker at the African History Month event other than to get money?
Maybe this is why many of our youngsters them are sick and tired when it come around to Black History Month.
Precisely, to African History Month.
Yes,
precisely.
My own
Too
nephew.
many wolves in sheep clothing, my brother.
Yes, King.
And you can't blame the youths, as Peter Tosh say. You remember that Peter Tosh song in the 60s? You can't blame the youths.
Yes.
Because the youths see these wolves in sheep clothing, and some of them have the longest dreadlocks.
We have a big poster upon my door, you know. It's a funny how you said it because, you know, fantastic Silver Fox management house, they put a big poster upon the front door which said, beware of the wolves them in our sheep clothing. And, you know, and it's funny, and that again is addressed to people in our own community who become
precisely
pretending
because we have to clean up our own yard before we can clean abroad. Because same way you dance a yard, you dance abroad.
Yes.
So cleaning has to be both internal and external. Because these are the internal enemies. For example, some of these guys come and tell lies. For example, that Marcus Garvey simply wanted Africans in the diaspora to go back to Africa. That's a total lie. Anyone, listen to me, people.
Yes.
Anyone, be they African or non-African, you hear saying that Marcus Garvey's ideology was about Africans abroad going back to Africa, condemn them as total liars.
Well, listen,
that was not Marcus Garvey's program.
Marcus
Garvey's program was that skilled Africans, nurses, doctors, engineers, etc., those with the necessary skills who could build a United States of African government on the motherland, to build a superpower that would be able to protect Africans at home and abroad, that they who have the necessary skills, who want to volunteer their services to build up in the industrialization of our motherland and in the building of other progressive things in our motherland, that they should return to do that. This was voluntary. And he also said that a lot of Africans in the diaspora, we do not want them in Mother Africa because they are no good in the diaspora, and so they would be no good in Mother Africa. So in other words, we don't want to keep rubbish from the diaspora for these rubbish to go to Mother Africa to make problems even worse. So anyone who refers to Marcus Garvey as a back to Africa man is a liar. Because that is to reduce Marcus Garvey's philosophy and opinions only to Africans getting up and going to Africa. That is an insult to the intelligence and integrity of the greatest Pan-Africanist leader the world has ever known.
Alright, I'm glad you touched upon them areas there. Now, I want to go deeper now, and for some of our new listeners, them, and people them who are gradually getting to learn more about Garvey, and hearing about Garvey Ikes and Garveyism and wonder, and Pan-Africanism and wonder what's the difference.
Garveyism and Pan-Africanism is the same thing.
Alright, okay.
Sentence. Let me explain why that is so.
Well, I'm going to come to that Mandingo. First thing I'm going to say is explain what is Garveyism.
That's what I'm saying to you. That Garveyism is Pan-Africanism. It's just another name for the same thing.
Okay,
Marcus
so
Garvey
if the question is asked...
Listen to what I'm saying. Yeah. Marcus Garvey was the greatest Pan-Africanist leader in history because he founded and led the largest Pan-Africanist organization in history. That's the UNIA and ACL. So you cannot be a Garveyite and not be a Pan-Africanist.
Okay. All right.
Let me repeat.
Yes.
Marcus Garvey was and is, up to this day, the greatest Pan-Africanist leader ever, because he founded on the 20th of July 1914 at 32 Charles Street, downtown Kingston, Jamaica, with my mother's cousin, who was later to become his first wife, Amy Ashwood Garvey, and others, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, which was the largest Pan-Africanist organization in history. So you cannot be a Garveyite and not be a Pan-Africanist, because Marcus Garvey was the greatest Pan-Africanist leader ever.
So vice versa, can you be a Pan-Africanist and not be a Garveyite?
I just told you, you cannot be a Pan-Africanist and not be a Garveyite, because Marcus Garvey was the greatest of the Pan-Africanist leaders.
Yes. Serious something. Give thanks for that, because enough ones have different views on that as to whether one can be a Pan-Africanist and not a Garveyite.
No, this is not a view thing, you know. This is a fact. This is the truth. You cannot be a Pan-Africanist and not be a Garveyite. What was Marcus Garvey about? The African race. Who formed and led the largest African organization in history? Marcus Garvey. How then can you be a Pan-Africanist and not be a Garveyite?
What has often come up in some of the analysis, then, Brother Mandingo, is when some people look at W.E. Du Bois, because he was a Pan.
I know, I have anticipated that, and I'll answer that. I have anticipated.
Was he a Pan-Africanist in your view?
No, listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. W.E. Du Bois was a person who used to boast that he had French and other forms of European ancestry in himself. And he was part of the Boule, or so-called Blue Blood Society in the U.S. that believed that because they were lighter in complexion than the darker Africans, that they were superior and were the ones within the race who should be the aristocrats to lord it over and to lead the darker African majority. Of course, Marcus Garvey rejected this totally. Remember that in the days of chattel enslavement, those who were what is called mulattoes, some people call them mixed race now, half European, half African, were given privileged positions over the Africans. And so they used their privileged positions to downpress and identify with the racist Europeans. Not all of them did, because a few of them did not. Du Bois' problem with Marcus Garvey stemmed from the fact that his first rival for the leadership of Africans in the U.S. was with Booker T. Washington, who Marcus Garvey admired. And in fact, Booker T. Washington's book, Up From Slavery, was the book that inspired Marcus Garvey to undertake the work of Pan-Africanism. However, what happened is that when Booker T. Washington died in 1916, because because there had been arrangement between Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey for them to meet. But by the time Marcus Garvey reached in 1916, Booker T. Washington had died a few months before. Du Bois felt that with Booker T. Washington out of the way, he now had no rivals to become the leader of the Africans in the U.S. But guess what? Marcus Garvey in 1916 founded the UNI and ACL in New York City and elsewhere and built an organization that had the support of the vast majority of African people. And W.E. Du Bois was jealous, mad, and vexed about this. He was upset about the fact that this African from Jamaica, because he played that game, Du Bois, that this African from Jamaica from off a banana boat could come and command the allegiance of the vast majority of Africans in the U.S. Africans born there and Africans from the Caribbean and elsewhere who went to live in the States. And so, because of his jealousy, instead of combining with Marcus Garvey, he fought against Marcus Garvey. He thought he was superior to Marcus Garvey, not only because of his light complexion, but also because he went to university and had a PhD from Harvard University. Because Marcus Garvey did not have a degree and a PhD, European University, he thought, how dare this upstart who has no degree, has no PhD like me, and who is not as light in complexion as me, how dare him become a leader of the people? But Marcus Garvey did not choose himself. The people chose Marcus Garvey because they identified with Marcus Garvey and not with W.E. Du Bois. It was the people's decision. Marcus Garvey, like any other leader, could not force himself on the people. It is the people who elect and select their leaders. And they selected Marcus Messiah Garvey. And because of his jealousy, Du Bois and others fought against Marcus Garvey. And he was involved in the campaign that led to the framing, imprisonment, and deportation of Marcus Garvey to Jamaica. That boy, Du Bois.
What?
Not only that, he ridiculed Marcus Garvey's idea of skilled Africans returning to Africa to build up the motherland. And he was a paid agent, W.E. Du Bois, of the U.S. State Department, who sent him to Liberia to sabotage Marcus Garvey's Liberian project. That is not a Pan-Africanist. If he was a Pan-Africanist, he would not have been employed, paid, and sent by the U.S., racist U.S. American State Department to go to Liberia to sabotage the program of the UNIA and ACL in our motherland. No Pan-Africanist would do that. We deal with actions. We deal with facts. We do not deal with speculation. We do not deal with guesstimates. We deal with the realities of the situation.
And I think that is beautiful because, like we say, folks, if you're locked in www.sfdcradio.com, it's all about the teachings of the Right Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey's teachings, experiences. All those teachings, all those experiences also relate today. And it was interesting just reflecting and hearing Brother Mandingo just, touch upon so much different areas, yes, of things from the history, things Marcus Garvey has gone through, and how so relevant those things are today. Brother Mandingo talked about, one of the attacks, one of the many attacks against Marcus Messiah Garvey was the fact that he was a Jamaican-born African and not maybe an American.
This was why Marcus Garvey at one time, when Du Bois and others were attacking him, for being from Jamaica. And this is a show. If you're a Pan-Africanist, you do not attack another African because they are from another country. No Pan-Africanist does that. When they were attacking him for being from Jamaica, this was why Marcus Garvey made the statement that as long as Africa is not free, the whole world is his province, that he will not be held by any national boundaries, no nationality, because we are global. This was why what Marcus Garvey said with those in the U.S. who opposed him because he was an African from Jamaica, because Marcus Garvey was teaching the Pan-African message that it is not where you're born, where you're from, but it is your Africanness.
Yes.
That is the most important thing. We're talking Pan-Africanism. And that hypocrite Du Bois, who criticized Marcus Garvey with his plan with the Liberia project, etc.
Yes.
When Marcus Garvey was safely dead in the flesh, and you can read these people, Du Bois said how fantastic an idea and plan and project the Garvey project was. He didn't do that when Garvey was alive, you know. He fought against it.
Okay.
But when Garvey was dead and when he helped to sabotage the Liberia project, he was saying that hypocrite, W.E. Du Bois.
That is maybe why some people are supposed getting confused with the Pan-Africanist of Du Bois and the
they have been
Pan-Africanist of Garvey.
confused because they have not been educated with respect to the history. But I, Mandingo the Garvey, I, Mandingo the Pan-African,
Mindful.
I am here to educate the people about the realities, the truth of the situation. I am not offering opinions or views. I'm stating facts. I'm stating truths.
And you know, what's crucial about them experiences then, what we realize Marcus Garvey gone through, Brother Mandingo, is
let me say this too.
Yes.
Two other individuals fought against Marcus Garvey. CLR James.
Okay.
From Trinidad.
All right. Okay. True.
Yes, that same CLR James from Trinidad and George Padmore from Trinidad. Both of them fought against Marcus Garvey because they were not Pan-Africanists. They were communists. They were communists.
Interesting.
Trying to use Africa for the communist cause.
Interesting.
Remember that Du Bois was a socialist.
Yes. Interesting, folks. You're locked in www.sfdc.com. What stick up in right there? So, Mr. Abridge, you want to ask the question, King? Microphone there. So, Abridge, I hear Brother Mandingo Blacker sound, and he want to ask a question. Stick up in right there, please, Brother Mandingo. We're going to get this microphone, this balance for the guests in the studio. Brother Lyrical Ashanti just passing. He may saw him look at me, and then I look up to the heavens, and I wonder what happened there. So, I'm going to get this microphone, your balance. Folks, Brother Mandingo, welcome to the program. Brother Mandingo is on the line. Brother Lyrical Ashanti, welcome to the vibration.
Yes, Brother Mandingo, Lyrical Ashanti once again from last week, original Montserrat Massive, or as we like in the UK. Touching on that very, deep issue about CLR James. And, I want to ask you a specific question, my brother, because I was in Hackney just over the weekend, and I just come up last night, and I noticed that me pass a sign in Dalston Junction by, the CLR James Library. So, are you trying to say, is that the significance of the name, that the name of the library, because he saw low against Marcus Garvey and he was actually on their side? So, they see the significance of naming the library in Hackney after him for all his dirty work against Marcus Garvey and Pan-Africanism.
I know about the CLR James Library you're talking about in Hackney. But you notice what I said about his actions against Marcus Garvey.
This is why I asked you the particular question.
Huh?
This is why I asked you if the naming of the library after him is the significance that they gave to him for help to selling out the African Pan-Africanism. I'm asking
well, what it goes to show, it is the mentality of those who named the library
After him.
because he did not name the library. It was people who admired him. It shows their mindset. And as a matter of fact, I know some of these people, and they are Marxists. They are communists.
So in other words, are you trying to tell me that they admired him to be a deceiver of the black movement?
If I am trying to do what?
This is why I'm asking the question of the significance of the naming of him after the library. Like you were saying to me now, the reason.
Yes. What I'm saying is that
because
the
he was a
people who named
deceiver
the
of
library
us.
after him are people who share CLR James'
Views.
communist ideals.
As a deceiver of us.
Yes, of course. Because I tell you something. Let me show you a plain difference between Marcus Garvey and CLR James. In 1914, when the European World War, because miseducated Africans talk about World War I. There's no World War I. Because we were not fighting any world war. It's the European World War I. Get it straight. And the next one is the European World War II. Because we were not fighting any world war. So you have European World War I from 1914 to 1918. You have European World War II from 1939 to 1935. In 1914, just before European World War I started, Marcus Garvey, seeing the Europeans were going to be fighting, went home to Jamaica and founded the UNI and ACL. You know what CLR James did? He applied when the war broke out to join the British Army. My friend also from Trinidadian, just like CLR James, but is a Garveyite. My brother, the late and great Dr. Professor Tony Martin, put out in his book, History of Pan-African Revolt, this account of how when CLR James tried to enlist in the British Army to fight the German Kaiser, he was refused. And Tony Martin told me that CLR James was so embarrassed at this exposure by Tony Martin. He said CLR James said to him, why did you have to put that in your book? And Tony said, because it's true. Now, Tony Martin is an African from Trinidad. CLR James is an African from Trinidad. But they were opposite sides. CLR was a communist. Tony Martin, a Garveyite, meaning a Pan-Africanist.
Yes.
George Padmore, also another communist, used to fight Marcus Garvey. He combined with CLR James to attack Marcus Garvey. And in fact, when Marcus Garvey had his first stroke in 1940, it was George Padmore who spread false rumors all over the world that Marcus Garvey was dead. George Padmore, and him too, after Garvey died, and George Padmore saw that the communists were racist, that the Russians were racist, Stalin from Georgia and the rest of the Russians were racist and were only want to use African people as cannon fodder, and he broke with the communists. He wrote a book called Pan-Africanism or Communism. This is George Padmore, the former communist. You notice the title? Pan-Africanism or Communism. This is a very rare book, but I have an original copy of that book.
Stick up in right there, sir.
Pan-Africanism or Communism.
But I want to ask a question right there, sir Mandingo.
Well, Brother Mandingo, thanks. I'm going to let you continue but I just want to say thanks for the strength and the dedication. You know, really.
Yes, my brother.
But to tell you furthermore.
Let me say this to you, my brother. Can you imagine if W.E. Du Bois, C.L.R. James, and George Padmore, all three of them educated, all three of them intelligent, if they had combined with Marcus Garvey, the progress that the African race would have made, but they use their intelligence and education for most of their lives in the cause of European socialism and communism and fought against Marcus Garvey, the Pan-Africanist, only repenting and saying they were sorry when Marcus Garvey physically was dead. And you attacked Marcus Garvey about going to Africa to contribute for those who want to contribute. Where did he end up going and dying? In Ghana, in Africa. The very thing that he attacked Marcus Garvey about, he ended up. Marcus Garvey prophecy fulfilling him.
Watch your deceiver, Brother Manding. And to tell you furthermore, me have a lyric them called Brainwash African that I'm working in the studio with right now about them, you know, westernized curse that them are adapting to instead of the Africanness. And hopefully I'm doing some work in the studio. When we get a cut, me gonna left a cut for you specially. It named Brainwash African, you know. So give thanks again. Yes. Give thanks again for the strength and the dedication, brother. I'm gonna let you continue, yeah? Respect.
Yes, my brother. Give thanks.
Give thanks, brother. Lyrical, shanty, and lyrical. Give thanks. As you don't know, sir, in that same area where you touch my brother Mandingo, because you're touching upon a few leaders you mentioned already who fight against Mark, and we are trying to show people, say, well, it's about the teachings, the experience of Garvey, and how it relates today. You know, misleaders, because they were misleading our people into European communism. So now we have a similar problem when we look upon them time to know what has changed. Have we progressed or digressed? Because we're in a full
No, well listen, in every generation you will always have such individuals. The important thing is that we in our time must strengthen and do as much as we can to overcome these obstacles and those who try to prevent us from progressing, both internally and externally. You see, as Marcus Garvey says, it does not make sense for us to be complaining, you know. You notice in me saying what I'm saying, I'm just stating things as they are, but I am not crying, because crying and complaining doesn't help and solve things. What one has to do is to educate the people. Tell the people the truth. Do not tell the people lies, because when tell the people lies, then they will not progress and solve their problems. Tell the people the truth so that you and the people can work together for the goals that are necessary for our liberation. So we don't sit and mope and cry, as Marcus Garvey said, because we have to have the confidence in ourselves to do what we have to do. We do not cry over spilled milk. We study, learn from the past, because if we do not learn from the past, then we will be condemned to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Ah, yes, so true, so true.
So we learn from history. It's like the Sankofa bird in Ghana, West Africa. That's why it's flying. It looks fine. It is still flying forward, you know.
Yes.
But it is a lesson that in flying forward, you look backwards so you know where you're coming from, so that you know where you're going.
Fantastic.
So we use history to help us to chart a better future. So we do not deal with history. You see, with Marcus Garvey, history was not history for the sake of history. History was only important insofar as it helps us. Any history which is not important we have no use for it. We only employ any and everything that will make us progress. So, for example, we do not have time to be talking about Marcus Garvey, what he had to say about Europeans fighting each other, etc., in any of their world wars, etc. We are about our progress. And if you're dealing seriously, you stick to the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey and the course of African philosophy. When you read those words by Marcus Garvey in both books, you will see that we have no time to be concerned with Europeans fighting each other. We are primarily, in fact, we are exclusively concerned with the liberation of our African race. This is what we are about. We have no time to waste, because time wasting only aids the enemy. And those who seek to have us engage in time wasting are enemies.
Give thanks and praise to locked into www.sfdcradio.com. Yes, but I tell you, man, Brother Mandingo on the airways. It's all about the word, the sound, the power, the teaching of the right honorable Malcolm Garvey. People now are starting to open their books again. Philosophy and opinions, race first, race pride. When we're talking about race pride, and people have heard honorable Brother Mandingo talk about race pride, people are asking the question: is Garveyism the same as black supremacy?
No, listen, let me get it. No, Garveyism, Pan-Africanism, is not about any black supremacy. We are not dealing with any supremacy over anybody else. What Marcus Garvey said is that every race has its own destiny to chart. And what should happen is that there should be justice amongst all races. That no one race should dominate and triumph over another race. So when you're a Pan-Africanist, when you're a Garveyite, we don't deal with things about any so-called black supremacy over anybody else. No. What happens is that we respect other races and we organize ourselves as a powerful people so that other races will have to respect us. Because what this is about is that respect is a thing that you do not beg. Respect is a thing that has to be given, whether you like it or not.
You know, we give thanks, and again, enough questions we're getting from last week, and we're trying getting as much from a virgin to respond to. People are looking at Marcus Garvey philosophy, and just because I want maybe a biological African, does it mean that one is necessarily good for the struggle?
But no, listen, in every race, and we're talking about the African race, there's good and bad. With Africans, a traitor is an African who works against the interests of the African race. So such an African is an enemy. And in all races and in all societies, you know the penalty for being a traitor. I need to say nothing more. I mean, we don't waste time on such,
yes.
It's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Brother Mandingo, people often talk about Marcus Garvey when they're expressing views and doing their own research. And some people are trying to highlight various reported things like Marcus Garvey has been labeled anti-Semitic by the Jewish organizations. Was Marcus Garvey anti-Semitic?
Marcus Garvey, when they talk about anti-Semitic, this is another thing that people must be educated about for those who don't know. To be Semitic is not just to be Jewish. That was wrong. Because Arabs are also Semitic. This is why it is ridiculous when you hear some Jewish Zionists saying that Arabs and other Semitic people are anti-Semitic. Because it would mean they are anti themselves. That's ridiculous. The Jews are the only Semitic people. The Arabs are Semites also. So that's ridiculous. So we get that out of the way. Now, in terms of Marcus Garvey being so-called anti, not just anti-Semitic, but anti-European, anti-anything. Marcus Garvey was not anti any other race. Marcus Garvey was pro-African. Get it straight.
Okay.
Marcus Garvey's agenda was not to be anti-anyone. Marcus Garvey's agenda was be pro-African. In other words, we are for the interests of the African race. Marcus Garvey was for the interests of the African race. So this thing about anti does not come into the equation at all. And anyone who comes with that should be dismissed with the contempt that idiotic.
Yes, King. Well, I tell you, and the question has been asked that because of all speculations like that and accusations like that, what can you tell us about any maybe assassination attempts on Garvey's life?
Well, there were many. There was this guy called Tyler who was sent to assassinate him, and Marcus Garvey was shot several times by Tyler in his office in New York City.
Yes.
But guess what? Marcus Garvey was always a fighter, and he was saved because when this guy Tyler approached him with a gun and started to shoot, Marcus Garvey did not whimper and beg, but Marcus Garvey rushed him, and guess who also rushed?
Who else rushed him?
Tyler. My cousin. Amy Ashwood, the first wife.
What?
Yes, because my cousin was a soldier. She and Marcus Garvey took on the gunman.
We are set to be.
So you see, my cousin is an example of an African woman who is a fighter, a soldier. She was a bawling and screaming and that type of thing. She and Marcus Garvey rushed the gunman, Tyler. That's why Marcus Garvey was not killed. Because they never turned no other cheek and started to cry. But they attacked the attacker.
What a thing. What a me are soaking that is a beautiful vibration. Yes, Amy Jakes and Marcus rushing assassination attempts on Garvey's life.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, yes man.
And another thing with Marcus Garvey too. There were many attempts to try to poison Marcus Garvey. But guess why they didn't work? Marcus Garvey didn't eat from people.
Yes.
You know, one of his detractors said that Marcus Garvey used to eat out of pure tin food stuff.
What?
But the reason why Marcus Garvey used to eat out of tin food stuff was that he was opening the tin and eating the food therein. He was not depending on other people to cook and bring food to him because he knew that this was a sure way of someone poisoning you.
Yes. Seriously.
So Marcus Garvey prepared his own food, and most of it was he used tinned stuff that he opened and what he prepared because he was no food. And you see, when people are licky and lazy, they are easily poisoned. When you are licky, I repeat, when you are licky and don't want to prepare your own food, you're a perfect candidate to be poisoned. Another thing with Marcus Garvey in terms of food preparation, and this is something my father taught me, he would allow no one to bring drinks to him. He got his own drink.
Whoa, okay.
You know how many times people have been poisoned because people bring drink? Take, for example, my father. Ever since I was a child in Jamaica, my father told me, it doesn't matter who, let no one bring any drink to you. Any drink you get, you must get it yourself. Let no one, for example, open any bottle for you. You must open it yourself. If they bring it to you, do not drink it. And you don't care how they want to be vexed. Let no one bring anything for you to consume. and you don't know where it's coming from. Because all it takes is one time.
Serious something. You know, Brother Mandingo, there is so much in Garvey's leadership that even as even being reported, much less repeated. You know,
Definitely.
You know, and when we think and look at the passion to see, you know what I mean, how his people, his passion basically to see his people free in a nutshell. You know, no ego to be massaged. You know,
No.
It's so easy to see how the sincerity of what he had could be overlooked.
Definitely.
You know, and the beautiful thing with observing again, because I know we touched on it briefly one time about concern about elitism, because we're looking at a lot of things Marcus Garvey went through that time that we're going through now. Even when you mention about the various leaders who fight against him, and we've seen certain isms still going on amongst we today. Yeah?
Yes.
Amongst
and you see, the important thing is that we must be able to protect ourselves and defend ourselves against the internal enemies and the external enemies. Remember, you know, we are in a situation of war, you know, and war occurs in different ways. War is not just shooting a gun on the battlefield, you know. War takes place in schools, takes place in universities, takes place in the workplace. Remember, war takes place in different ways. War is multifaceted, many-sided.
You know, and as we touched upon that, and Garvey naturally fully aware of that. Again, just touch upon it why it was so crucial for Garvey, because Garvey had a way of not just choosing people based upon how pretty they look or based upon elitism. He had a way of looking at people, you know, based upon their loyalty and their service to the race first. True or false?
Precisely. It was based, for example, he had an award system for the organization, and people were given titles based on their loyalty and their service to the race.
Yes, sir.
Because when he was asked, for example, why is he giving titles? He said yes, but these titles are not based on the fact that so-and-so were the parents, you know, hereditary thing.
Yes.
These are titles given for services rendered by the individuals based on service. Because, you know, you have people who get titles because they inherit the title.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the titles in Marcus Garvey's organization was based on the services rendered to the race by the individual.
More honorable.
And this is how titles should be.
Yes, sir, yeah. That is honorable and true, man. You know, oftentimes, even though when people say about Garvey, again, as we're touching upon many different things, we hear the quotation often enough, look for me in the whirlwind. What does that mean? What does that mean, Brother Mandingo?
What Garvey said is that when he's gone in the flesh, because he knew that we all have to leave here at some time in the present form that we are in. But what he's saying is that as an ancestor, that he and other ancestors would always come and be with us in our times of need, inspirationally. So in other words, in the dimension in which they are, they will assist us and they will never leave us. That when we are in need of help, we shall get help, mystically and otherwise, from him and the other ancestors. That is what he meant when he said, look for me in the whirlwind.
I tell you, fantastic, you know. And among other things, people remember Marcus Garvey. Is it true that he was asked, I think you mentioned it briefly earlier on, he was asked if he was a Jamaican, and he replied by saying that he would not give up a continent for an island.
Yes, exactly. Marcus Garvey is an African. We're an African. We are not limited, because if it was Jamaica, then he would not have been known. We're talking about our race. And our race knows no boundaries, no national boundaries. That's why he said that the world is his province. The world. Not Jamaica, not the US, the world.
And as you know, today we have this naturally aspects of nationalism and tribalism, all kind of arrogancy. Again, with Garvey observing, just touch pull us and tell us the significance of the flag, the Marcus Garvey flag.
In 1920, when the flag was adopted, about 25,000 Africans at the convention, the first convention at Madison Square Garden, People Base. The red for the blood that must be shed for the redemption of Africa and Africans. The green for the green fields and wealth of our mother continent. And the black symbolizing the African race. Symbolizing the African race. And I say symbolizing because remember, within the race, we have different shades from dark to not so dark. But what we have in common is that we are the only race of people who have that unique, kinky, and woolly lamb's wool type of hair.
Yes. Because, and again, and because of all that, African identity was so crucial to Garvey. Why was that so important to Marcus Garvey?
That was the first thing in our program. Because if you do not know yourself, then you are lost. So you have to know yourself, which is your identity. This is why inscribed on the temples, along the banks of the Nile and elsewhere, the saying, man, woman, know thyself. When you know yourself, then that means you know your identity. You know who you are. You remember there was a Mighty Diamond song in the 1970s about those who have lost their identity.
Oh, where did I lose my identity? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
When you are lost, when you have lost your identity, then you will always be used and abused. But when you know your identity, meaning you know yourself, knowing your identity and knowing yourself is the same thing, then no one will be able to dictate and will be able to use you. Yeah.
This is why, again, I suppose Garvey always point to history being our landmark.
What's that?
This is why, again, when we read about Marcus Messiah Garvey, again, pointing us to history and the significance of history being our landmark.
I'm saying that history is our landmark by which we are guided.
Yes.
Exactly. And history is the medium by which we educate our people. Because as Marcus Garvey said, education isn't so much what you take in, but it is what you can put out, coming from within.
And of course, I think about with education, the word is on the power in education. Just tell us about briefly that, about some of the movements and some of the organizations from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s and the 60s, them, who basically, use Garvey's philosophy to help set their movements. What happened there? It seems as if slight technical. We seem to last Mandingo on the areas. Hold on right there, so. www.sfdcradio.com. Slight technicality going on. We're going to see if we can reconnect with Brother Mandingo. Brother Mandingo, do we have you there? Alright, we're going to try and link with the King again. Yes, the Nubian Beat program, yes, it's all about Marcus Messiah Garvey teaches for today's solution and problems and whether it's relevant, yes, and like we said, the scholar, I'm there every week for 1 hour, yes, from 10 p.m. United Kingdom time, yes, to 11 p.m. What we try and do is allocate 1 hour, start a little bit late this evening today, and so we'll continue for that 1 hour time. So we're going to see if we can do and catch up with a few more questions from the Virgin before we seal up and round up. Yes, guys, I suppose it's been an hour now still, So remember, say I look forward to every time B to come. We have some track for Touch Off him album. We have we're not getting. Yeah, all right. Okay, it seems as if we're going to give thanks for Brother Mandingo this evening, yeah. And we're going to see if we can link him up with him next week. We do give thanks for his presence. Brother Mandingo, we give thanks. Yes, I'm going to give thanks for the endurance and the discipline, and for the accessibility every time. We're going to endeavor and let me say, folks, 1 hour from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. every Monday. SFDCRadio.com on the Nubian Beach Show with yours truly, Sir Kush Genesis. Yesterday, one of the islands there. So, yes, memorable moments, historical moments, in the history of broadcasting right here, so Luton Town, Bedfordshire, United Kingdom, beaming out to the world. SFDC radio.com. I want to see if we can connect up and seal off. We could see if we can connect up with the honorable brother.
Hello?
We give thanks because I don't like seal up, finish off things already with elders them. You know, we give thanks again. And just to seal up on that last question we was asking.
Yes, yes. Elijah Muhammad, who founded the Nation of Islam, he was a member of Marcus Garvey's organization. So he learned about organizing, using newspapers. His security unit, known as the Fruit of Islam, is based off the military unit in Marcus Garvey's organization, the African Legion.
Okay.
The Black Panther Party, with their program of providing for our people food and that type of thing, is from Marcus Garvey's organization. The self-defense aspect of the Black Panther Party is from Marcus Garvey's organization. Malcolm X, both in the Nation of Islam and later when he formed his own organization of African American Unity, was based off Marcus Garvey's organization. Remember that Malcolm X's parents were Garveyites. His father was a Garveyite organizer, and his mother was also in the news section of the Marcus Garvey organization. So many organizations have been inspired by Marcus Garvey. Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria was a Garveyite, inspired by Marcus Garvey.
Kwame Nkrumah
in his autobiography said that of all the literature he read in his autobiography, none inspired him more than the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. You know? Sobukwe of the Pan-Africanist Congress in Tanzania, South Africa, quoted Marcus Garvey as an influence. The ANC flag is based off the Marcus Garvey's UNIA and ACAC flag. And in fact, most of the ANC leaders in the early days were Garveyites. And Marcus Garvey's organization invited members of the ANC to conventions in the U.S. Jomo Kenyatta.
Yes, in Kenya.
So many of them.
Yes.
Inspired by Marcus Garvey. Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture. Inspired by Marcus Garvey. So, when you talk about Marcus Garvey, no matter how the enemy tries, the presence and the inspiration of Marcus Garvey lives on eternally and will never die.
I want to fling in one more question that was asked earlier on amongst the members.
Go ahead, my brother.
Therefore, amongst everything, how could the leader of the largest African organization be erased from history, much less European history and our own history books? How could it be, yes, that's a question that was asked. How could it be, obviously the greatest leader, of the largest African organization, how could his history so easily be erased from not only European books but our own history books?
No, but listen. First of all, you don't expect your enemy to promote you. That's nonsense.
Yes.
Because there's no way in which your enemy is going to promote you. And I tell you what, European history books, some of them, they talk about Marcus Garvey, but they tell lies or what is called half-truths. and it's, in fact, until Tony Martin came with his book Race First, all the other books, most of them written by Europeans about Marcus Garvey, were lies about Marcus Garvey because they were trying to kill the ideology of Marcus Garvey. But you cannot kill an idea. You cannot kill an idea.
Serious.
And it is for us. And over from generation to generation, African people have carried the message of Marcus Garvey's ideology in their heart. Like I know about Marcus Garvey because I grew up in Jamaica where elders would tell me about Marcus Garvey. This was when Marcus Garvey was not being taught in the schools in Jamaica. So the people, the elders, transmitted the knowledge of Marcus Garvey to myself and other youths from generation to generation.
So when people ask the question, I have a fling in one more. Somebody asked the other day, is Garveyism, when we're talking about Garveyism and the ideology, is it a new thing?
Of course, because during the 100th year, Marcus Garvey founded the UNI and ACL. Before that, he was busy preparing and working to fine-tune organization and with an ideology for us. And this is why when he came with the ideology, all the preparation which established the organization in 1914 and which has given us the evolution, your steps in the Black Prince solution that his son Marcus Garvey Jr. has done. So this is why I say no African anywhere in the world that they don't know what is 100 years ago.
I tell him, a bag more question, folks. We're going to catch up with Brother Mandingo later because we could have gone until it's done. Love talk with this elder. Trust me. It's www.sfdc.com. Brother Mandingo, please give your closing comments to our listening audience, please. My
closing comments is as Marcus Garvey said. Whenever you hear any lies are being told about Marcus Garvey, you must attack and destroy these lies. Never allow lies and insults against our people, against our leaders to go unchallenged. Because when you do that, you allow the enemy to win the propaganda war. And as Marcus Garvey said in the Philosophy and Opinions, propaganda has done more to defeat races and peoples more than open warfare. Because when you defeat people mentally, it means defeated them totally. You don't have to conquer them physically. Once you conquer their minds, then you have won them totally. This is why Marcus Garvey said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And Bob Marley and all thanks and praises due to Bob. Bob put it to music.
Yes, King.
And this is why Peter Tosh also said, no matter where you come from, once you're a black man or a black woman, you're an African. So we don't deal with no divisionism, no islandism, and that no so-called tribalism. We are African people, irrespective of language, etc., etc.
Give thanks and praises. Right Honorable Brother Mandingo, Nubian Beat. It's an honor, it's a pleasure, it's a historical moment. We give thanks again, and we look forward to next Monday originally. Remember, say, folks,
definitely, my brother.
10 p.m. to 11 p.m. United Kingdom time. It's a memorable moment. May the ancestors guide you and keep you safe, Brother Mandingo.
And same to you, my brother Kush and Silver Fox, and all the listeners, the heartical listeners, African listeners of the station. You notice I said the heartical African listeners, because I know you have the enemies who are also listening.
Natural.
Fire burn.
Give thanks.
Fire burn.
Give thanks.
To the wicked enemies.
Honorable Brother Mandingo, give thanks. Battlefield warrior, no play with this thing, yeah. Study Garvey. Give thanks.
Love.
I say, hey, let us work and pray. Let us work, let us pray. You and I, hey, self-reliance is the way black people today. Let us work, let us pray. You and I, hey, self-reliance is the only way. Come make we study Garvey, come make we study Garvey. Know your history, brother, we destiny. Study Garvey, come make we study Garvey. Know the prophecy, our destiny. I man would like to reflect on the message that Marcus left. Oh yes, cause if you look around, some don't know self-reliance yet, not yet. So gather your thoughts and come along. Children, this is a chance for your freedom. If you're willing to be free, free from slavery, come follow them your teachings of Marcus Garvey.
SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.